That's how y'all sound to me. Oh, you're doing it at home. You going to Cancun? Where are you? You at home? Oh, Kyrie, you suck. Through the screen. If I play like an 8-year-old, come through the screen. Yeah, get on that ground. You go fishing.
I have tremendous empathy for Brooklyn Nets fans because, like Los Angeles Lakers fans, nothing went according to plan this season, and I guess that's the exciting part about the NBA. But unfortunately, when you have championship aspirations and you start the season with two players that won MVP over the past decade, alongside with Kyrie Irving, then obviously when the Brooklyn Nets finish the way they did, there's going to be some disappointment. But it gets worse than that, because it seems like the Brooklyn Nets, like last year or in the middle of last year, might be headed towards a situation where they're going to look significantly different next year. What do I mean by that? Well, we'll get to that in a sec. Before we get to the content, we're going to be giving away $500 to a subscriber that turns on our notifications on this channel. Now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Now that the NBA playoffs are in full swing, every single dollar counts, especially if you want to use that money towards a parlay, which is why I partnered with Albert to save as much of my money as I possibly could. You see, the difference between Albert and a traditional bank is Albert doesn't charge overdraft fees. They won't charge you a fee for having a checking and savings account. And they even give cash back on debit card purchases. And they'll even work behind the scenes to make sure you save. Instead of opening a traditional savings account and hoping that you would remember to put money into it, which I definitely don't, Albert looks at your income and expenses and sees what type of money you could save. And they'll move some of that money into your savings account little by little without you even noticing, really. It's kind of like that feeling where you find money in your pocket that you didn't know was there. That's pretty much what it's like to have an Albert account. And let's say you're bad at managing your money like I am. Well, Albert has a feature that they call Genius, which is a team of financial experts that will look at your situation and answer any of your questions in the event that you get stuck. And they're so confident that you're going to like the app that they're willing to give you $150 when you use my link in the description down below, albert.com/TFM, open a checking account, and connect a qualifying direct deposit. You have nothing to lose, man. It takes like 5 minutes to create an account with my link in the description down below. And once you do it and open a checking account and link a qualifying direct deposit, they'll give you $150. That's albert.com/TFM. And thank you, Albert, for the sponsorship.
We haven't had any of those discussions yet, so it'd be unfair for me to comment on, how it looks with us and Kyrie, because to be quite frank, he has some decisions to make on his own.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? The Brooklyn Nets definitely fell short of their expectations this past year, and honestly, it had a lot to do with the fact that they took a risk that didn't pay off, at least not this year, when they traded James Harden for a package surrounding Ben Simmons that also included Andre Drummond and Seth Curry. But in addition to that, even Kyrie Irving admitted that the vaccine mandate stuff was a huge distraction for him this past year. Now, for those of you guys that don't remember, Kyrie Irving initially refused to get vaccinated over this past season, despite it being mandated by the NBA. And it's kind of ironic because we saw a situation like this that is relatively similar in the NFL. Now, I watched some douchebag named Microphone, and he made a video on this a while ago where one of the stars, or easily one of the faces of the NFL, Aaron Rodgers, refused to take the vaccine. He even lied about being immunized. It was this huge controversy. Then he went on to the #1 sports show on YouTube, the Pat McAfee Show, and started calling out the fact that vaccines were mandated and they were forced upon him, even though it wasn't necessarily the best option for him. He found that he was allergic to something in the vaccine, and there were specific precautions that he was able to take that was an alternative to getting vaccinated, and inevitably he was able to play football games until the end of the season. Kyrie Irving, on the other hand, wasn't nearly as lucky, living in a fairly progressive state in New York with a mayor in Eric Adams that really forced the vaccine mandate as much as he possibly could, despite not wanting to be vaccinated and the fact that there was no alternative to Kyrie Irving getting vaccinated. This resulted in tremendous frustration, at least in the very beginning, from not only Kyrie Irving, who I'm sure is very upset at the fact that he wasn't able to play basketball, but in addition to this, you had James Harden, who was rumored to be very irritated about the situation, alongside other things. Obviously, he claimed that the fact fact that he wasn't featured as regularly in the Brooklyn Nets offense because he had to share the ball with two other isolation scorers in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. But Sean Marks was also really upset, and he said in the middle of the season when Kyrie Irving wasn't playing that he could not commit to Kyrie Irving for the future. There was no way that they could re-sign an individual that wasn't showing up for the team and that wasn't showing up to games. Now, at the time, this wasn't a headline that took the NBA by storm because at the end of the day, it's still the middle of the season. The offseason was a ways away, and for all you know, Kyrie Irving could eventually get vaccinated or he could eventually start playing and the Brooklyn Nets could win an NBA championship and everything is good in Brooklyn. That's not what ended up happening. What ended up happening was the Nets traded James Harden to the Philadelphia 76ers, got Ben Simmons in return, was hoping that Ben Simmons could at least play some basketball. Towards the end of the season, Ben Simmons never ended up suiting up, and as a result, he's an individual that gets memed over and over again as a result of the fact that he wasn't able to make it onto the court to play basketball. And you have the situation we're in now. Now, the Brooklyn Nets conducted their exit interviews recently, and the big storyline here was Sean Marks. And he was asked a question that he was asked earlier on in the season, whether or not he was going to commit to Kyrie Irving and bringing him back this offseason now that Kyrie Irving could opt out and once again become a free agent. It's kind of funny because Kyrie Irving in the past has done something like this with the Boston Celtics where he committed to them.
Shared it with some of my teammates as well as the organization and everyone else in Boston. If you guys will have me back, I plan on re-signing here next year.
And then at the end of the day, he decided to go with the Brooklyn Nets that offseason. And believe me, if you didn't know about that, Boston Celtics fans will let you know about that incident forever and ever, every single time Kyrie Irving and commitment comes up. Now, here's what Sean Marks had to say in regards to bringing back Kyrie Irving.
Is the organization committed to Kyrie long term?
Yeah, look, I think that's something we've been discussing and we will continue to debrief on and discuss throughout this off season. And it's honestly not just Kyrie. I mean, you bring Kyrie up, but we have decisions to make on a variety of different free agents throughout our roster. We haven't had any of those discussions yet, so it'd be unfair for me to comment on how it looks with us and Kyrie, because to be quite frank, he has some decisions to make on his own. So he has to look what he's going to do with his player option and so forth like that. But I think we know what we're looking for. We're looking for guys that want to come in here, be part of something bigger than themselves, play selfless, play team basketball, and be available. And that goes not only for Kyrie, but for everybody here.
Look, man, I completely understand Sean Marks' sentiment here. I understand for all of us, yes, my body, my choice. If I don't want to get vaccinated, then I don't have to get vaccinated. I 100% understand that. I also applaud Kyrie Irving for being against the vaccine mandate. But there is an argument here that could be made that, hey, look, we're in a situation where we were in a global pandemic. You're one of our star players. Yes, the vaccine might be a little sketchy, but your entire team took it just so they could play this season. We need you. Who knows how long Kevin Durant could stay this damn good for? Who knows how long this core could be a championship contender for? What better way to tell your teammates that, hey, I don't believe in this vaccine stuff, I don't believe in the mandate, but since you guys are my teammates and I want to compete this badly, I'm willing to make this sacrifice, get the jab, and move forward. That might be what Sean Marks is expecting from Kyrie. And with respect to Sean Marks, I understand wanting players like that, players that will play for each other, players that would make sacrifices for each other. But I'm going to admit, I don't think you're going to get that from Kyrie Irving. Now, do I think Kyrie is going to end up re-signing with the Brooklyn Nets? Considering how I'm seeing Ben Simmons in trade rumors, yes, we're actually seeing Ben Simmons in trade rumors currently. Apparently, the Atlanta Hawks of all teams are a team that you want to keep an eye on in a potential Ben Simmons trade, which I don't think is going to end up happening. I feel like the Brooklyn Nets traded for him for a reason. They want to see how Ben Simmons would work out with Kyrie Irving if Kyrie comes back and Kevin Durant. But do I think the Nets will end up bringing back Kyrie Irving to begin with? Well, when you look at every single team in the NBA, what other team could sign Kyrie Irving at this point? Who could offer Kyrie Irving this amount of money? On a completely other side of the spectrum, who would the Brooklyn Nets possibly sign to replace Kyrie? Could they potentially decide, hey, instead of getting one superstar player on a max contract that, with all due respect, is a little volatile, if there's something that he wants to prove to all of society, for all you know, Kyrie Irving may not show up. Historically, he's shown that. Whether it was for something like the vaccine mandate, mandate, or even prior to this, Kyrie Irving, the year before the vaccine mandate, was taking games off. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, it's just what you could come to expect from Kyrie Irving. If you're paying someone to perform a job and he's really damn good at his job, you want to make sure he shows up to his job, even if he is one of the best at doing it. And if Kyrie Irving doesn't show up when you want him to, then that could be a problem. I think at the end of the day, yeah, the Brooklyn Nets are going to end up re-signing Kyrie Irving, because ahead of all else, guys, the number one thing that I think this decision boils down to is what Kevin Durant wants. And do you think Kevin Durant is going to look at Kyrie Irving and say, yeah, he drove me crazy this past season, I don't want him back onto the team? Most probably not. All I'm going to say is we didn't expect this from the Brooklyn Nets, but at the end of the day, that's why the games are played. You heard Sean Marks say it himself. We need people here that want to be here. They're selfless, that want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And there's an objective and there's a goal at stake here. And in order to do that, we're going to need availability from everybody. Sean Marks seems to be very hard on himself because at the end of the day, yes, his job is going to be on the line if this doesn't end up working out, which credit to Sean Marks, he's been with the Brooklyn Nets since the time that he was handed a team with no first round picks as a result of a horrific trade made in the early 2010s, took risks on players like D'Angelo Russell and Jahlil Okafor, and brought in players like Spencer Dinwiddie. He eventually decided to trade those players away and bring on the core of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. I think he's a remarkable general manager, and I don't blame him for being frustrated at the fact that he hasn't won a championship yet. And it seems like his priorities are straight here, because he said the number one focus for the Brooklyn Nets at the end of the day is getting their culture stronger. Do we take a step back? Without a doubt. The culture isn't what it once was. Now, bear in mind that Sean Marks also said that he still has faith in Steve Nash, but he also mentioned this about Ben Simmons.
Ben had a tricky build-up, to be quite frank. You know, he got here and there was a setback, obviously, as he went through his ramp-up, and we saw him on the court. We saw him, participating in 3-on-3 and 5-on-5 games with the Stay Ready group, and we were hoping that, just like Ben was, hoping he was going to be out there. And I think he was hoping more than anybody that he could come out and contribute for the team. We've had lengthy discussions about how much he can contribute and how much really he means to our roster. There's a gaping hole, and he fits some needs that we've talked about in the past. So it got too much, and we had another follow-up MRI, and we could see that the herniation had expanded, and at that point, there was really nothing but surgery that was going to fix this. So I can tell you that in the communications I've had with him multiple times since the surgery, he's feeling relief already, feeling great.
Needless to say, the Brooklyn Nets have a lot of decisions to make this offseason. This team could look relatively new next season, or it could look fairly similar as it did this season. What do you think the Brooklyn Nets should do? Should they bring back Kyrie Irving? Should they trade Ben Simmons? Should they fire Steve Nash? I'd like to hear what you have to say. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.